Hello. Now we're going to talk about a topic that should be of keen interest to all of you because it's about you. Exactly, branding you. You may have noticed, I hope you noticed, that every single chapter in your textbook ended with the section called Branding You, where they tried to apply the principles discussed in that chapter to the process of developing your personal brand. Why is it important? What should we be doing now? I want to go a little bit further with those ideas. Yes, you are a brand. And so was the shepherd who, with an eighth grade education, who had never been out of the fields since he was in eighth grade. He became a national brand in his home country. And even our pet Bijan posted 20 years ago, developed 80,000 followers and subscribers by being an attractive brand on YouTube. I think you know the answer to this one. Of course it's LinkedIn. That's why you had two separate projects to make sure that your LinkedIn account was up to speed, and we'll talk a little bit more about how to use it further on in this discussion. This example was from my days as a professor at Radford University in Virginia. I had a alumnus who had been in my social media class come back after 2 years and was relocating to Charlotte, North Carolina, asked me for help in finding out who she could talk to there about a position in public relations. I simply sat down and did a search on LinkedIn of people with public relations manager in their description, and came up with 42,600 names in Charlotte. That's a lot to deal with. So we actually had to think about how to decrease the number and focus a little bit more. And LinkedIn allows you to do that. They have a function for fine-tuning your search. So what do you think I thought of to use? Well, Charlotte was reasonably close to Radford. A lot of people go there. So I decided to try the old school tie, screen them for people who attended Radford University. Still came out with 137 results, much more manageable number. And I believed that the group that was here were people who were more likely to take the kind of introductory calls they would get from the young lady in my office. Why? Again, that old school tie. What the young lady in my office was going to attempt, and something I recommend really for all college students or people earlier in their career, and even late in their career on occasions, to use, is the informational interview. You're going into the interview asking the person to meet with you to discuss the position he's in, or how she got the job that she's in, the position. It's a very non-threatening way to approach people. Her script was something like, "My name is Aaron. I am a senior graduating from UTPB in May in communications. I would love to hear how you established yourself in public relations. Could we meet for coffee next week?" Do you see how non-threatening that is? In fact, it's got an implicit compliment in there. I would love to hear how you established yourselves in public relations. Talk to me. Tell me how you achieve this. That appeals. So there's really two big pools for them talking to you. One is if you have the old school tie, or even just the interest in meeting with somebody new out of college. And the second one is that compliment, the chance for them to talk about how they put together such a wonderful career. Referring back to the previous slide, there are many ways, of course, that you could narrow the search and find people who are clear candidates to network with you. Not just the old school tie, a shared interest can work. My first job, the guy interviewing me was from Ohio State alum who was fanatical about the Buckeye football. I'd grown up in Columbus, Ohio, had season tickets a number of years, my father. So I could talk to him play by play on the last 4 Ohio State Michigan games, which we literally did in our interview, and I was hired for that reason. So there's other shared things, sorority that you're in, or fraternity, tuba players, any kind of interest, rugby players. I've heard of any kind of interest working. So that can be another way to screen people that might be more likely than others to talk to you at a given point in time. Switching gears, as a business professional, you have to be on LinkedIn. 80%, I say on this slide, that's from a couple years ago. I'd bet today it's 95% of employers will look for you. And if they didn't find you on LinkedIn, they will look for you as soon as they hear your name. You've already done this, but I will be checking your profiles this week. If you haven't, look at it and see if you can improve it. Make it something that makes people want to hire you. I have an interest in innovation and entrepreneurship. I was interested to read a number of sources that venture capitalists, VCs, pay keen attention now to the networks of founders of firms. They think that's key to the possible success of the firm. It actually makes sense if you think about it, because they're hoping that companies ramp up and grow quickly. They'll need help. Who will they turn to? They're people in their network. So the people in the network are likely to be instrumental in the success of the operation. So venture capitalists will look for founders with big networks and relevant networks, expertise in the areas that are likely to be important. The same kind of thing they should have been building their whole career, and you will, because you've had this course. I think most of you understand the basic idea of and value of a network. There are people who can provide you opportunities, help you find jobs. Me, for example, if you count my longer-term consulting assignments, 6 months or more, I can claim that I've had 17 different jobs. Exactly 3 of them have come from the traditional ways that people think about getting jobs. My first job out of school was gotten through the school placement office. My third job was a wanted ad in the Wall Street Journal, and my final job at Radford University was through an internet listing of academic jobs. But all of those other ones were through my network, and that's part of the reason why you want to develop a network. But we're going to talk briefly here about another one, something called a personal learning network. The keeping a track with people, if you want a career in marketing, who are sharp in marketing, who get good jobs, they help you stay at the cutting edge when things are changing, and they are changing rapidly in this world. It's essential for everybody to keep track of what's going on in their field. A good PLN, personal learning network, can be the augmentation you need to be successful in your career. Why do I think of Hong Kong, pictured here and in the last slide, when I discuss personal learning networks? It is really when I was running a sales desk in Hong Kong, sales and trading desk, that I first realized the importance of a PLN. I was frustrated one day when I realized I wasn't generating as many good trading ideas as I used to when I was in Chicago. And I was very frustrated by it. I tried to think of the reasons. One, that I came to mind was lack of sleep. The hours were brutal there. I would meet people for breakfast, lunch, make presentations the afternoon, cut out at 5 o'clock to have dinner with my family. But then, because so much of our business was in American bonds and products, I would usually come back at 8:30 for the opening of the U.S. markets. And if something was happening, if the market was moving, I needed to talk to clients and help our evening sales desk. I would stay until midnight or even 2 o'clock in the morning, and probably have a meeting the next morning at 7 a.m. So maybe it was lack of sleep, maybe it was the brutal hours, having to entertain clients, the pressure of the job. I came up with all these excuses, but I realized on a trip back to Chicago, I went through my normal routine. I rode the train into the city. My friend Kathy, who was our chief economist for futures markets, sat next to me. Her friend, the chief economist for one of the large banks in town, sat across. We all debated what was going on economically, and I got into the office. The floor traders, the people who traded futures and options in the pit, we got there early enough. They were still upstairs. We talked about what had happened yesterday overnight and what they anticipated today. And then I sat at the desk. And my first 2 or 3 calls that I fielded were from large institutional investors. I realized what a rich environment I had there, that this network I had built up carefully over years had really augmented me, made me more market savvy. And I didn't have that in Hong Kong. So that drove home to me how important a PLN is. The good thing is today, social media, better communication aids you in making your personal network, keeping in touch with people, and even maintaining it. If I'd gone through the same thing today, moving from Chicago to Hong Kong, no, it wouldn't be the same as riding the train with the 2 economists or talking to the guys every morning, but I would have more communication. So I would keep more of my personal learning network that I had built up in Chicago. So that's another reason for carefully building these networks. The clear moral from the last slide is build up a personal network, and you have a chance to do it, and you should start now. Think of people who you believe will be good resources. Put them in your LinkedIn now, and they'll be there forever. Get involved in groups and LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, Reddits, subreddits that are interested in your areas, can provide the knowledge, and converse with them regularly and keep your network alive. Use LinkedIn. Make sure your profile is professional. Join groups. Build your network. From time to time, do those informational interviews to get physical and actually talk to people by phone or over MS Teams or however you do it. So, but be building relationship. Use it for what it's for. I know it may not seem the most fun network. It's not Reddit or TikTok, but it really is a tool you can use to build and maintain your dual networks that are going to be important to your career. When I teach marketing in these fall or spring regular semesters, I give this talk just before the semester breaks, mid breaks, Thanksgiving holiday or spring break, and recommend that everybody over the break take the opportunity to do 5 informational interviews to give a jump start to the strategy. Since we started after spring break, I guess I would recommend a week 1 summer challenge instead of a spring break challenge. But think about it. Just set aside a week, do 5 of these informational interviews. You'll learn more about a career that you think you're interested in. You'll make some contacts. And the great thing about informational interviews, if you call somebody up and say, I'm graduating from UT TB and I want to find a job. Do you have any openings? If they don't have anything right at the moment, they're certainly going to say no, and it's probably over. But if you call and say, I want to find out how you got in your job, you get a chance to meet the person, you get a chance to learn what he does or she does, and what she or he do on a day-to-day basis, and how they succeeded in their job. The sweet deal is that if something should open up in 2 weeks, if you made a positive impression, they're very likely to call you or send you an email saying something has opened up. Or even better, and more important, they know people in the industry. So if they hear of something that might be interested to you at another company, they may well let you know that. So if you make a positive impression, you've turned them into job agents who are already in the industry looking out for you. So do these informational interviews, get comfortable with them, and make them a regular part of your efforts to build your brand. Of course, it is not all LinkedIn. This is a personal social strategy you should develop. One approach you may take is rich content. Consider blogging or some other kind of regular web posting to create content. A friend and mentor of mine, Mark Schaefer, says that every student who's looking for a job should have a blog post, a blog site, and post regularly. The typical way to view content marketing is put out rich content, generate engagement, and build a community. And that's what you can do with that. Going back to Mark Schaefer, who we talked about earlier, in his best-selling book, Known, he said there's 4 steps into becoming known. Find sustainable interest, something that you are interested. It doesn't have to be, and people say, find your passion. Well, if your passion is Texas football, you're going to find a hard time, if you're not an athlete, finding a career in that space. And you have to think hard whether you really want to go through everything there. A sustainable interest is something that you find interesting, that you believe you have some talent in, and you could continue to work at. And people find, if it's a sustainable interest, they do it for a while, they develop a passion for it. So find that sustainable interest. Determine your space. By that he means where do you fit in that area? Where do you fit in that interest? Where does your skills and the needs of the market intersect? Fuel what kind of content? Are you good at videos? Are you good at audio podcasts? Are you a good copywriter? Better at traditional blogs? What kind of content can you create? And then create an actionable audience. That's from the engagement, find an audience that supports you in many ways. We'll come back to his ideas about community in a later discussion, but in the book Known, which I think is probably, I would argue, maybe the best book on personal branding. Certainly from a social media point of view, it is. A really good example of how video, even relatively cheap amateurish video, can be employed to build a business and build a reputation. This gentleman became the biggest taxidermist in California, based largely on the viral video that is shown here. Mark used to say that every marketing student looking for a job should have a blog. He's changed it to every student. He really thinks that throughout business, people value the communication skills and the sense of social media marketing and content marketing that is shown by somebody who has a successful ongoing blog. Everybody will probably develop their own progression of how they put friends or people through their networking. My standard has always been I meet a lot of people on Twitter. It's a good place to reach out. It's non-threatening to connect to somebody. Once you interact with them a few times, you may get to know them better, and then you can, if it's a professional contact, I'll probably connect with them on LinkedIn. And then I may well look to see if they fit into one of my LinkedIn groups. So I reach out to them on Twitter. We engage socially a few times. I then become friends with them on LinkedIn, and I may well steer them to one of my LinkedIn groups, progressively more tied into my network. We will talk more about this when we talk about innovation and social media, but community sourcing is another powerful advantage of having a good network. When I decided I wanted to create a new course in social media marketing, even though nobody else in Virginia was teaching the topic, I was able to reach out to my networks on Twitter and LinkedIn and get remarkable help. The way you run a campaign like that is to ask the questions. I basically tweeted out and posted questions on my blog, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and I periodically reminded them of the project. I would do updates on my blog, showing them how the progression in my syllabus and my proposal to the college, and got feedback on those. And I made really sure that I gave them a thank you and a copy of the final syllabus because I realized that I may want to come back to them sometime. They had been so helpful. When do you have time to do this, to build your network? Now. Take some time. Use Zoom. Make great use of your improved LinkedIn profile and start the steps it takes to build a network and your learning community. It will be time well spent.